I have a very privileged and very pleasurable role this evening. It's to introduce my good friend Drew, Mr. Drew Bellamy, tonight's speaker. And I'm very greatly privileged to be his host. But before I tell something about him, I have some announcements this evening. So therefore, I will first start, Drew, with the announcements and then. Now, okay, starting first one, already I have announced that. Tonight's speaker is Drew Bellamy, former BSWA president, speaking about Dhamma and the dinosaurs. And you're not talking about us, Drew, no? Next Friday's speaker will be Catherine Yu, early childhood education and family therapy specialist. Please note that Friday night speakers during Range Retreat will not be live streamed, so please come along in person to listen to the talks. Next one, Kusala Hermitage's entry to range ceremony is here at Dhammaloka this Sunday, 13th August from 10 a.m. onwards. Number 5, please join Be Quiet and KFC for some special range events on the first Saturday of each month, the next of which will be yoga with Cindy on Saturday the 2nd September, 5th September from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the community hall. Bring your own mat or towel. All ages welcome. There will not be any regular Be Quiet or KFC events on during rains. Number 6, book fundraiser for Newbury Monastery. There are still some books left at Bodhinyana Monastery by donation, cash only. This short run of books, The Beauty of Silence, include beautiful charcoal drawings of BSWA sites by Migara Ramanayaka with handwritten descriptions of each drawing by Ajahn Brahm and handwritten introduction by Ajahn Brahmali. Just if I may add a little bit, these were introduced as souvenirs at the 72nd birthday of Ajahn Brahm. So please be generous on this supporting Newbury Monastery and also Anukampa Bhikkhuni project in London, UK, in Oxford actually, in the UK. Number 7, during rains, the Dhammaloka Library will be open Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m., Saturdays 2:30 to 4:30 p.m., and Sundays 9 to 11:30 a.m. only when Dhamma school classes are on. The library will no longer be open on Mondays, both during and after rains. On Mondays, we will have a volunteer available for visits, inquiries, and memberships. Armadale Meditation Group Zoom meetings continues to meet on Tuesdays before rains with guest lay speakers. See website for details. Please see BSWA website and notice boards for details of all the announcements you have just heard. Those are the announcements. Now, if I may say a little bit about Drew, and this is what is given to me by our hard-working community coordinator, Ariel. But I could, without a written piece of paper, I can talk about this, but I will stick to the script first. Drew Bellamy is a local businessman, father, and a former president of the Buddhist Society. I think from Drew, my association with Drew, I remember him telling me that his business is technology-based business, supplying expertise and some products to mining industry. And Drew served on the executive committee for 3 years up until 2018. Something which is not here, if I may add, please, that I remember I think it was the 6th Global Buddhist Conference, Dennis, in Perth. Drew was part of the executive group. I think Cecilia Mitra was the president, and I think Drew was the secretary, which is not in this written up. I thought it was very nicely organized, very successful conference, so I thought I better mention that as well. Nice. And using his business organizational skills, Drew was instrumental in overseeing many important structural changes which has allowed the society to thrive and maintain its position as the preeminent Buddhist center in Australia. In recent years, Drew has given a number of talks here at the BSWA on a practical, low-key, layperson approach to living the Noble Eightfold Path. So with that, I introduce Mr. Drew Bellamy, who is tonight's speaker. So I think in the traditional Buddhist way, when the Buddha wanted to appreciate anyone, he said 2 or 3 sadhus. So we will, in the Ajahn Brahm style, we'll say 3 sadhus and welcome Drew to our talk tonight. Okay, let's give 3 sadhus to Drew. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Maybe wait till after the talk. You might be booing. Thanks for the great and kind introduction, Ananda. You've really put me under pressure now to perform. So tonight's format, I'll lead the meditation. We'll do a 30-minute meditation, and then I'll do a 30, 40-minute maybe Dhamma talk, and then we'll leave about 20 minutes for a Q&A on what was discussed tonight, or anything actually about Buddhism that you might want to ask. Can everyone hear me okay? Good, excellent. Alrighty, Bill, we might kill the lights, thank you. So I'll guide you into the meditation, and then probably let everyone be at peace, and once we close our eyes and relax a bit, just leave you to it. So closing our eyes and maybe just doing a bit of wriggling and making sure that your body's comfortable. Certainly in my experience with meditation, there's no need, once you've turned your phone off, to jump straight in. It's always worth taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 minutes, just getting the body comfortable rather than struggling all the way through and not achieving any depth. So maybe in taking care of the body, we might just start with our toes. Just give our toes a little wriggle. See that they're there. And maybe come up, see how our feet are planted on the ground, if they're comfortable. And then moving up to our calves. Maybe just giving them a little flex, feeling if there's any tension. And maybe coming up again to our knees, just making sure if you've got a sore knee, it's in the right place. Coming up to our thighs, just feeling them. All day they carry us around, and maybe now we can be aware of them as we sit down to relax. And coming up to our backside, just making sure we're in a comfortable position. Our hands in our lap, if that's what they are, if they're comfortable. Coming to our lower back. Maybe sometimes there's a bit of pain and tightness. I'm not trying to conquer it. Just be aware of it. Coming to our stomach. Is there any tension? Are we holding on to anything? Can we maybe just breathe out and let go of it if there's any tightness? And coming up to our chest. Just feeling it expand as we breathe in. Deflate as we breathe out. In and out. to our shoulders, bringing some awareness to our shoulders. Is there any tension we can let go of? And then in our neck. Are we relaxed? Is our posture straight? Is our neck straight? And coming up to our face. Can we feel any tension in our face? Are we aware of any tension around our mouth? Maybe in between our eyes, on our forehead, is it tense? Can we let it go? And then coming back to our nose, back to the breath. The focus of our meditation tonight, the breath. Feeling the breath in, slight pause. Feeling the breath out. In and out. Just allowing the breath in a regular breath. Any thoughts, just letting them come and go, not grasping. Focusing on the breath in our own rhythm. Feeling the tension drop from your face. Bringing the wandering mind back to the breath.
the day go, letting the future go, and feeling the breath. Feeling at ease as the mind settles. Gently coming back to the breath if you've drifted away. last few minutes before I ring the bell. Just feeling the body, feeling the ease, being grateful for this period of relaxation. That went well. That was good. Ready for bed. Okay, thanks for coming tonight. It's quite a decent crowd. I actually brought a friend with me because I thought it'd just be myself and Dennis. But it's a fantastic turnout. So the title of my talk tonight, which no doubt a lot of you would have seen online, and hopefully that brought you in, is the Dhamma and Dinosaurs. And you're probably wondering how there could possibly be a connection between the two. But there is. So I've been pretty busy over the last few years, raising a kid, phase 2 of my business, and like a lot of people went through a phase in my life where I wasn't so spiritual. Meditation was sort of sporadic during the week and just very, very busy, and these things happen, and I thought I was sort of losing a bit of touch with Buddhism and spirituality, and was trying to find ways to connect with Buddhism a bit more in the last few years, whilst I didn't have the time to come down here every Friday night or even do 9-day retreats. That all sort of went out the window. But then I discovered if you just keep an open mind and keep a bit patient, there's many different ways that you can approach the Dhamma and gain some insight. And in Buddhism, insight leading to wisdom really is the name of the game. People tend to think that if you get involved with Buddhism, it's really all about the meditation. And if you're a good meditator, then you're a good Buddhist. But not really. It takes more than that. When you first come to Buddhism, sure, the meditation, especially from a Western lifestyle, is very good and can be very relaxing. But there's only so far you can go with meditation unless you start to develop insights. And I've given a series of talks on the Noble Eightfold Path leading up to right meditation. But certainly, once you get a bit of practice with meditation and it's working for you, you'll then find that you need something else. And sometimes the suttas can be a bit dry, and then you've sort of heard enough talks. And so then you say to yourself, well, how can I look at Buddhism in daily life, and how can I sort of do thought experiments to help gain this insight leading to wisdom, which will hopefully eventually get us out of here. It's not meditation that's going to get you out of here. It's insight or wisdom that are the keys to exiting the burning building. So I've been watching the BBC 1999 documentary Walking with Dinosaurs with my young son, and I first saw this in 1999, 25 odd years ago, when I was studying geology, and I was fascinated with the series because as a geologist there's units called paleontology, and it's literally the study of the dinosaurs. And at the time I watched it, I was interested from the scientific point of view, but then coming back 20 years later plus, having some Buddhism under my belt, and I'm coming up to almost 18, 19 years now looking at the Dhamma, I saw the series in a whole new light, and it opened up to me how I could use something like that for some Dhamma contemplation. And it struck me when I was watching the series about deep time and how far back life goes on this planet. And humans have been around for roughly since we were naughty monkeys coming down from the tree, about 100,000 years. However, complex life, I suppose you'd call it, life that has consciousness, has actually been around for 500 million years. And this is almost, it is impossible to contemplate in your mind how long this can be. And there's a few famous analogies out there before I get into the Buddhist analogies about deep time, where if you put the whole history of life onto a 24-hour clock, then the existence of humanity is like 2 seconds before midnight. And if you think about it, of course that's a long, long time. But how can you really get a grasp of it? And one way I was considering is that you could say to yourself, all right, let's go back 100 million years. So you go back 100 million years in time to the time of the dinosaurs, and they were actually only about, of the 500 million years, are only about 125 million year span where they supposedly ruled the planet. So you go back in time, you go back 100 million years, and you wake up and there's dinosaurs roaming around, there's forests and there's mountains, and really there's not much going on the planet. There's plenty of life, but actually there's plenty of suffering. And the whole purpose of life at that point is really just to eat another being. So every single life form, conscious or not, before humanity, the purpose was to eat another life form, whether you're a herbivore eating plants, or you're in the long chain of animals, or you're at the apex predator and then you die and then you get eaten by whatever, vultures. So you wake up back in time, and there's all this carnage and killing going on, and there's absolutely no point to it, and there's nowhere to go. So okay, let's go to sleep for 100 years. And you wake up again, and it's the same. The plants look the same, the animals look the same, everyone's killing everything, and there's no point to it. So then you go, okay, I'm going to go to sleep for 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, and you wake up and everything's exactly the same. The mountains haven't really come down anyway, the plants all look the same, and there's nothing going on but killing and carnage. And so then you wake up 90 million years later, and it's still the same. So the mountains are now looking different, the plants are looking slightly different, things have evolved, the animals look slightly different, but actually they're just filling the same niche that the species before them that got extinct was doing, and now they've grown into that niche. And really the whole thing is completely pointless, and it's been going on for thousands and hundreds and millions of years for absolutely no purpose at all. And if you begin to think about things like that, it may give you another insight into the Dhamma. So why would I say look at it this way? Because when you first come to Buddhism, the classic way, or the classic lesson for looking at the Dhamma is what I guess started the Buddha on his quest, which is contemplating old age, sickness, and death. And if it's the most obvious Dharma contemplation you can do, because obviously it's all around us. But actually, I think it's quite difficult at the beginning. I know myself, if I contemplate old age, so I'll look at someone who's very elderly, and I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be like that one day, but that's one day in the future, and I feel quite young, and maybe I look a bit younger than I should, and it'll, there's this denial going on that it'll never actually come your way, and then it's the same for sickness. I fully comprehend what being sick is like. I've been sick, I've been in hospital, and all the rest of it. And at the time when you've got the sickness, you're feeling sorry for yourself. And you're like, oh, when I'm through this sickness, I'm really going to try much harder with my spirituality and really put in the effort. And then you get a bit better, and you're like, oh, maybe tomorrow. Or a bit busy with work, maybe next week. And then I'll get down to Dhamma Loka. And then, of course, death. Death is the big one. In Western society, you go to a funeral, and I've been to a few now, and I guess I'm going to be going to a few more unless I'm next. You go to a funeral, the perfect place to contemplate death, and you get there, and you're catching up with old friends. Oh, I haven't seen you for 5 years. How's it going? How's your business? How's this? How's your kid? How's that? And then you go to the coffin for the service, and they've got the dead person all dressed up in a nice suit, better than they've ever looked in their whole life when you knew them, full of makeup and almost looking like they're alive. And then, of course, at the funeral service, oh, he was the best guy ever. He was really generous and really nice. What? Not that I knew him like that. And so it's sort of brushed over. And if that's not working for you, and it's not really working for me so much, then maybe you need to look at other contemplations, and the contemplation of deep time is definitely worthwhile. It is worthwhile grappling with it, looking at it, doing thought experiments on it, and perhaps coming to the realisation that deep time does exist. We are here only in our lives as humans for a very short amount of time. Humans have only been here for a very short amount of time, and this is a limited and wonderful opportunity to gain the keys to get out of the burning building. So the Buddha touches on deep time in a few suttas. I've just photocopied two from home, and I'll just paraphrase them. So these are from I think it's the fourth Nikaya, the Samyutta Nikaya, and there's this one sutta called the Mountain, and it goes like this. A certain monk approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Venerable Sir, how long is an eon?" "An eon is long, monk. It is not easy to count. It is hard to say so many years, so many hundreds of years, so many thousands, or so many hundreds of thousands of years." The monk said, "Is it possible to give a simile, sir?" "It is possible," the Buddha said. "Suppose, monk, there was a great stone mountain," paraphrasing, "without holes and crevices, one solid mass of rock, and at the end of every 100 years, a man would stroke it once with a fine handkerchief. This great stone mountain might then be worn away and be eliminated, but the eon would not have ended. So long as an eon, monk, such a length. And we have wandered so many eons, so many hundreds of eons, so many thousands, without a discoverable beginning. For what reason, monk? Because there is no beginning, and it is enough to be liberated." So, as I understand it, an eon is basically a universal cycle, and the universal cycle so long, which I think modern science is saying it's about 15 billion years, but the Buddha wasn't counting like that 2,500 years ago. He's saying that one universal cycle, even if you wore a mountain down with a handkerchief, you wouldn't be finished with the universe. And then in Buddhist cosmology, the universe expands and it grows, and planets come and people get born and die, and then it contracts, and then the whole thing starts over again. If we look at deep time, we look at the history of planet Earth, there's a very short amount of time that, if you believe in rebirth, which really you have to if you're going to be serious about Buddhism, there's a very short amount of time that you can be born into, a higher conscious state, like being a human being. It's certainly not the highest conscious state, but it's enough to begin contemplating. And if you consider this very limited opportunity that we have in the human realm, where we can read and write and we're not getting killed in war every day or dying from childbirth, really that could give you quite a bit of motivation as you contemplate it over time, that following the Dhamma and finding the way out of this is of utmost importance, because, I don't know, the way I see the planet at the moment, it's in a very unstable situation. In the last 500 years, the human population has quintupled or whatever, from something like 200 million to 7 billion people. Nuclear weapons, global warming, all the rest of it, it's looking very, very unstable. And so we might be in a shortened amount of time to practice the Dhamma and make some sort of realizations to set us up for a better rebirth next time, or maybe even to get out of here. So there's a second sutta where the Buddha touches on deep time and how much has gone before us. It's from the same Nikaya. This one's a little bit longer, so I'll just paraphrase it a bit. Monks, this samsara, so that's sort of the wheel, the continual rounds of rebirths and same cycles of life, is without discoverable beginning. So if you think about the Buddha saying samsara and the wheel, and it's not discoverable, and the same things are going around, all you have to do is contemplate that thought experiment about going back, say, 100 million years into the land of the dinosaurs, going to sleep for 1 million years and waking up and seeing the whole thing is just exactly like it was before. And as an animal being reborn, you might have been reborn, 4 million times or something, depending on your lifespan, and nothing's been achieved. It's all the same. So samsara is without discoverable beginning. A first point is not discerned of beings roaming and wandering on, which in the Buddhist cosmology, if the universes truly are being born and dying and being born again endlessly, then of course there's no beginning. In modern science today, there's talk about multiverses, which are universes existing in parallel. There's nothing really in Buddhism about it, but if that was true, then it'd make things even worse, because you can't get out in any direction. What do you think, monks? Which is more, the stream of blood that you have shed when you were beheaded as you roamed and wandered through this long course, or the water of the 4 great oceans? I know it's a bit gory, but sometimes if you want to contemplate the Dhamma, you have to contemplate the gory stuff as well. And one of the good things about the Buddha was that when he gave similes and talked to people, he saw people at, different stages of spirituality and people having different aptitudes. And sometimes, he'd start really basic and talk about just living a good moral life, like a family life, and sort of trying your best and not getting up to too much evil and mischief. And then with other people and audiences, he'd really drive home the point about the spiritual quest. And with some people, he'd because of their aptitude and psychology, he'd painted it in a more positive light. They tend to be the stories that you hear most in public. but with other people, where he saw their aptitude and ability, he'd paint it in a negative light. So, he was a good teacher because he basically did the horses for courses. So in this time, he's being a little bit more gory to drive the point home to the monks. And he's saying, the blood that you have shed as you have roamed and wandered this long course is more than the water of the 4 great oceans. As long as you have been cows, as long as you have been goats, buffaloes, he goes through all the different animals of the day. They wouldn't have known about dinosaurs. He said that you've just lived time and time and time again, and every time you've lived, you've come to a bad end, and the blood that you've shed could fill the 4 great oceans. So I did a little mathematics with a friend of mine, and we tried to calculate over just 120 million years the average lifetime of an average-sized animal, just to see if there was any connection to this. That person's here tonight, and we did the maths, and I think it turned out, it was a little while ago now, it's something like if you lived in the age of the dinosaurs as an average-sized being with an average-sized life of sort of 10 years or so, you would have spilt enough blood to fill, I think, a quarter of the Indian Ocean in today's terms. So that's quite a lot. And it's a bit gory, but that gives you another indication of deep time. Like, to even partially fill an ocean, that's a lot of lifetimes. That's a lot of bodies that's been inhabited. And then, if you calculated all the animals that have ever lived in the history of the Earth, from the great big massive brontosauruses to the little scorpions 400 million years ago, if you calculated all them and all their lifetimes, most definitely you would fill the Indian Ocean many times over. I'm not sure about the rest of the planet, but that's for sure. So these experiments can be a little bit challenging, but sometimes you need the challenge of these thought experiments and something like deep time. I mean, there's other ways you can approach the Dhamma, but at the moment this popped up for me just as I was asked to a few months ago to give this talk, and certainly it's reinvigorated my Dharmic investigation over the last few months, and that's an inspiring thing because on this Buddhist path, you can't just expect that you're going to go in this linear fashion. You're going to learn to meditate, and then naturally your morality is going to get better, and then you're going to have these insights, and then by the time you're 70, you're going to be liberated. Unfortunately, that's not usually the case. And there is another sutta where a monk asked the Buddha about how often someone gets the chance to hear the Dhamma, and he gave the simile that if you had a round wooden ring in the ocean, and it was floating in the ocean, and every 100 years a turtle came up to breathe from air, then every time it came up and it happened to coincide with poking its head through the ring, that's how often a being in samsara gets to engage in the Dhamma. And then, from memory, I haven't got it here, I believe that the monk then said, how often is one enlightened? And I think that the Buddha said, have that first scenario, and then have the turtle do the same thing again, and that's how often a Buddha comes along. So obviously that's not very often, and you could look at that and go, well, it's hopeless. It's hopeless, like waiting for a turtle every 100 years to come up and happen to coincide with a floating ring on the ocean. I might as well give up. But not really. If you look at deep time and how many beings have lived and died, and calculated all them versus the turtle putting its head through the ring, it's not quite as bad as you think. So there's still hope out there, and you never know. It might be your turn to be the turtle to put the head through the ring, and something like this is all about grappling with the Dharma from another angle and being open to, if you've done enough work or you're looking to do enough work in the Dharma, to something shifting you a bit. And on this path, it's definitely not a straight line, and you may spend a few years struggling, fighting, banging your head against the wall, not really getting anywhere, and then boom, all of a sudden, in quick time, boom, boom, there's a couple of insights, something's happened, something's opened up in your life, the karma's come through, the circumstances twisted into the right format for you. And then, of course, you have a few wins and you think, oh, I'm really on the path now, and my meditation's going really good, and I'm getting lots of bliss. And then you find out that that's really just another ceiling that you have to punch through. And I know that in Western circles of Buddhism, people can definitely get caught up a little bit in getting blissful meditations, which can be quite nice. In fact, I heard on a society retreat in Victoria that there was a businessman. He must be much richer than me. He went on a retreat and he got a jhana for the first time, lucky him. And he came out of it, and apparently he said to one of the monks down at Serpentine that was at that retreat, I won't say what his name is, that that first time jhana for him, like the first, breakthrough of meditation, once you're through the lights and all the rest of it, was worth $1 million. And if he could repeat that again, he would go to the bank and get out $1 million. And that's nice. Maybe that will give us a bit of inspiration to develop our spiritual practice and achieve a jhana. But that's also exactly the sort of place where someone can get stuck. And then eventually, if you're not progressing on the path and you are lucky enough to get even to somewhere like that, you can sort of be a bit deluded. And the name of the game is not magical meditations. Meditations help with stillness, and that helps with insight and wisdom. But the name of the game is wisdom, which are the keys to get out of here, as the Buddha said, to move to the other shore, or to get out of the burning house. And the Buddha's first ever discourse, I think, the first 4 words he ever said was, "The world is on fire." And I first heard that maybe 15, 20 years ago, and I read it and thought, oh, yeah, that makes sense. If you read the newspapers and whatever else, it's always just chaos out there. 20 plus years later, doing all the things I've done and just trying to cope, I've got a new appreciation for that saying. I can just see now, as you get older and as life goes on, there's definitely an accumulation of drama and problems, and that's where, if you've done some Buddhist practice for a while, even a little bit, it can really be quite helpful in dealing with the inevitable material problems that are going to come your way. I'm in my mid to late 40s now, and I'd have to say there's almost no one I know in my peer group at this stage of life by now that hasn't had some sort of problem with children or divorces or bankruptcy or health or anything like that. And it really is an indication of where things eventually head. That's not to say it's not a joyful life, but I tend to notice that of that peer group, those that have some sort of backing, whether it's a very strong family, in particular if they're a little bit spiritual, they tend to pull through a little bit better. And even if you weren't contemplating the old age, sickness and death, deep time wasn't doing it for you, really you can just look at your peer group, or if you're not quite that old, a little bit into the future, and you can see what's coming, and it's a mixture of joy and sadness, and definitely putting some effort into spirituality, whatever your aptitude, ability, and enthusiasm is, it will pay dividends in cultivating some stillness and then some stability through the inevitable rough waters that are coming. And even, watching this 4 episodes of the Walking with Dinosaurs with my son, on one hand, it was such a joy. Every Wednesday afternoon, he'd be pestering me to watch it, and he'd sit on my lap. He's only 2.5, 3, and we'd watch Walking with Dinosaurs and snuggle in, and it was such a joy. It was like one of the high points of my year. So that's going on. At the same time, he's watching it as a young boy. Wow, Brontosaurus, and I'm watching it going, oh my God, we're all in such trouble. Look how long this whole trap is going on for. And that's one of the joys and gratitudes I have on the spiritual path in doing the practice and its ups and downs is sometimes these surprising situations of joy and sadness and insight all wrapped up into one, and that certainly inspires me to keep going. And actually, ever since watching that show, something's shifted, and I've gone back to recently meditating twice a day, which is fantastic. Early in the morning before the sun, and then a little bit at night, and that's just brung a stillness back that I haven't had for a while, and I guess I've been neglecting because of family and work commitments, thinking, in time I'll get around to it, but actually you don't know how much time you've got, and certainly the increased meditation and dharmic contemplation is now bringing me, at this stage, much more joy that I'd sort of forgotten about than the last few years, pursuing the family and material stuff, which is all okay. And I would say to you that, if you're going through the same thing, maybe you haven't done something for a while, maybe you're getting into it now, it's a staircase on the way up. And, if you just haven't got the time at the moment and you're feeling a little bit guilty, don't feel the guilt. Try a little bit, but if you can't try too much, just wait for that time to come where you can really put in a bit more effort. And if it's too much to get down to the society or get on a 9-day retreat, which I can only dream of at the moment, perhaps just wrestle with the Dhamma on the way home in the car. Think about deep time, old age, sickness, and death. There's all sorts of stuff in the suttas about the poison arrow and lots and lots of stuff. But you can still do a bit. And even if meditation is once or twice or 3 times a week, like I've been a bit lately, at least that's something. At least that's something, and it will provide you with a little bit of stability and a little bit of inspiration that you're doing the right thing. So that's about 32 minutes. I think that I'll wrap that up there, and I'm hoping that we can have a discussion on anything Buddhism and anything that we've talked about tonight. I'll open the microphone up onto the floor. It's a pity this is not live stream, because usually there's a few more questions that come from overseas, but apparently this talk gets put up after we do it. I think maybe the committee's a bit worried about some people saying the wrong thing during the range retreat, untested speakers. So thank you very much. Sadhu.
Sadhu.
The start sadhu was much better. Guess the talk wasn't that good. Yeah, that's right.
Any questions for Drew?
Anything at all on Buddhism, anything.
Actually, Drew, I
Thanks. Yeah. Depressing.
It is actually, what made you to do that experiment? Is it to convince yourself or for your child later on to prove it to him?
I just, I just went into the suttas a little bit when I was thinking about deep time that the show had sparked me, and in that particular sutta I read out about the Buddha saying you're animals before and you've been beheaded and everyone dies, and you could feel the four great oceans. It sounded ridiculous that you could fill an ocean with blood, and I just wanted to test it. And yeah, you can get close enough. It's a bit gory, but you know what? If it interests you in continuing, a line of investigation with the Dhamma, great. If you're doing that and you're not watching Dancing with Chefs or something on Channel 7, great. Why not? Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, no, it's Ksenia. She's the president. Oh, jeez.
No, that's fine.
This is going to be hard hitting.
No. Yeah, thank you for a wonderful talk. It just reminds, these key Buddhist teachings about sickness, death, and, old age. It's a very good reminder. And, probably I will remind you of the next 9 days retreat when it's coming up. It will be good to come back to this type of practice. Just a question, how Buddhist practice help you with your professional life, professional work, business?
Right. Okay, so I run an engineering firm and currently we're building robots because I'm silly enough to get involved in something as difficult as that. I would hope that through some meditation and some dharmic contemplation that it brings a little bit of stillness during the working day when the pressure's on, and that will make me a bit more kind-hearted towards employees who might be doing the wrong thing, or not as frustrated with customers. Certainly when I'm at work, it's so busy I don't sort of walk around thinking about whatever Ajahn Brahm all day or anything like that. It's just in the moment, and I think that's fine as well. We've been talking about deep time, and I decided to tackle that because I saw the show, but also because in Buddhism people or the Buddhists try and bring you to focusing on the present moment, which is a very good thing because so many people live in the future. Oh, if I just get through high school and get to university, it'll be all right. Oh, if I just get married, it'll be all right. Oh, once we have kids, our relationship will be stable and then it'll be all right. Once I'm retired, then it'll be all right. And it's not. It's never all right. There's always something going on. So I suppose the Buddhist practice, I hope, is giving me more patience at work, and also allows me to be in the now and not worrying so much about the future, and accepting that there's only a few things that I have control over. So I obviously have peers in the business world, and I know that a lot of them who are running companies and stuff, they don't sleep a whole lot. They don't sleep much. Well, there's just so much going on all the time, and they're worried and they're worried and they're worried. And I tend to sleep pretty well, even though there's a lot of pressure. So, there's value in following the Buddha's path in sort of the real world. And again, I would say it's not just meditation. Like, it's meditation, and then examining the Dhamma, and of course hanging around the right people and sort of seeing
the bigger picture and living in the now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
very helpful.
Oh no, another president. Give me an easy one.
Yeah, no, this is an easy one, Drew, because I was just thinking, just following on from Ksenia's question there, I wonder if you wouldn't mind to share just what happened to you when you were first getting into Buddhism, and you, I think you were in Thailand, and you had this gem of an idea that really started maybe a lot of the business that's going on now.
Yeah. So I guess following the Dhamma can sometimes have more material, real-world consequences. So I'd been involved in the Buddhist Society for about 4 or 5 years, and then around about 2008-9, I was made redundant from BHP. There were mass redundancies, and it was the GFC. And I didn't really have much else to do. I finished off a master's at uni, and then there wasn't many jobs going, so I decided to go on this Buddhist pilgrimage because I was 3 or 4 years into it and just super gung-ho. I was the guy on the cushion, I was going to get liberated, no problems. Wasn't really working. Hit a few ceilings, I didn't quite know it. And so, yeah, I ended up in Thailand at a monastery. And I was teaching English at a local school for free, just for something to do, and meditating really hard, but not really getting anywhere. And yeah, I was only sleeping probably 3 hours, 4 hours a night because there was so much meditation going on during the day. And yeah, I had this idea. I'm not an engineer by trade. I had this engineering idea. In the monastery, and then thought this could work, and I checked out, rolled down the hill, went to a hotel room, bought a laptop, and started to write up my ideas to lodge as a patent in Australia. And I remember being in the hotel room, and I come out of this monastery for foreigners, and I went to the hotel room, and I remember trying to lie on the bed. And it was too soft, and I couldn't lie on the bed. And for the first 2 or 3 nights, I had to sleep on the carpet, which was just on the concrete. Yeah, anyway, and then by a series of very strange coincidences, I met some other engineering, manufacturing type people in that country, and then they sponsored me, and then I developed this idea with them, and then I came back to Australia, and then built the company. And unfortunately, the pilgrimage got cut short. Fortunately, maybe not, I don't know, then the business went okay. But yeah, that was serendipitous, interesting fork in the road, yeah, from hanging out at a monastery. So, I don't know. But be careful what you wish for. Oh, great, now we're on a roll. 2 questions at once, brilliant. Let's keep it going.
Thank you. It's Drew, right? Thank you
Yes.
very much for your talk, Drew.
My
It
pleasure.
was very motivating.
Great.
And I was saying so because, yeah, I've only come back to Buddhism maybe the last 4 months or 5 months or so, and I've noticed big change, but it's because of kind of some of the things you've said, like, it's not like I'm doing meditation, but it's not just meditation, but it's reading suttas, listening to talks, and putting that into practice. The things like trying to develop kindness and generosity, sila, and then reflecting on your own behaviors, thoughts, etc. So I think from your talk, something that really struck me is the time experiment, and that we're so lucky to get the Dhamma here now. Where, the people that are here, people who have come across Buddhism, we're so lucky with this thought experiment coming back. Yeah, you really have to, I guess, believe in past lives, and then you see we've got no time to lose. it's kind of like, you know, we got this jewel in front of us, use it, right? Buy yourself some good stuff, you know. Now, I'm curious about, the thing that worries me is slipping away and corruption and, you know, degradation. If we don't give enough effort, you know, we can slip away, because it's happened to me before. I've been on the path, and then thought I was going somewhere really good, and then something happens in your life, as you say, you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know whether it was an illness. Actually, it was the birth of my son, you know.
Join the club.
Hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work. So, you know, you slip away, and then if you don't come back, that could be eons again in the future, you know. So we got this amazing chance right now, as you say, leave the burning building. But because I've seen benefits already, just in a few months, from putting in effort, I just also want to use your talk as a springboard and encourage everyone to keep working gently and kindly to yourself, you know, and let's make good use, because there's no time to lose.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you look at Buddhism, it's only this time around 2,500 years old. That's not a long time. And really, is the planet going to go? Is humanity going to go for another 2,500 years? Is it really? I don't know. It's looking a bit unstable to me. I'd be lucky to go 500 years, maybe. Who can tell? So, yeah, you can do the thought experiment into the past, but why don't you do it into the future as well? And in the past, you can go, we've had 2,500, super lucky to get that again. I better hurry up with my work. Having said that, you know, there's many monks that go down to Serpentine, put the robes on with the best intentions, and they come out the other side back in civilian clothing. And if you're not ready, you're just not ready. I think the stat some monk told me once, it's something like 1 in 300 monastics, I think worldwide, die in their robes. So there's a huge disrobing rate. No fault of anyone. It just depends where you are at the time. Just got to put the effort in without putting too much effort in. You know, because I've seen a few go a little bit crazy as well, come out the other side and back into civilian life, and it's just been too much for them. So Buddhism's also the gradual path. Just keep at it. Thanks. Was there one more over here? Great. We've got plenty of time. Apparently we go to 9 o'clock, but if we ran out of questions before then, fine.
Yeah, thanks for your talk. It's all good stuff, and what humanity needs. Look, I was here to listen to a monk speak from Thailand, and he said he took 10 years to work out how to meditate properly. I don't want to spend 10 years, no. And I don't want to go to a monastery. Can you on a bad meditation day, what's it look like to you? Because meditation is a big part of Buddhism, of life. Guys who can take a lot of pressure, meditation seems to be a common denominator. Mandela and Justin Langer. And on a bad day, what do you experience? On a good day, like as far as light or as far as what you're experiencing when you're meditating, and how long would you meditate for?
Okay.
And any tips?
Yep. I can probably give that in 3 points. So first of all, meditation is really only 1/8 of the effort in Buddhism. You know, because there's a noble eightfold path: right thought, right view, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right meditation, right samadhi. Right effort. Yeah, right effort. Yeah. So meditation is only 1/8 of the path, and certainly it's been pretty trendy in the last 10 years. I think it's sort of peaked now from mainstream society and might just dissipate a little bit. You know, and if Justin Langer's doing some meditation, great. You know, if he's getting the word out there, great. What sort of meditation is he doing? you know, if I was a monk and I'd spent 10 years in a monastery and I wasn't meditating properly, maybe that's not the thing for me at the moment.
But then he cracked it. And he
Yeah, well, he
wanted-
might be talking about like really, really deep meditations,
Thinking
or
about giving it away. He was frustrated.
yeah, that can definitely happen. So look, a meditation on a bad day, and I'm not a super great meditator, really. I'm not an expert on it, and I don't teach it or anything like that at all. I'm just a regular lay guy. Meditation on a bad day, your mind's flickering, you can't concentrate, you keep thinking about what mischief some family member's up to or some pressure at work, and you can't focus on the breath. And meditation on a good day, I mean, I'm in no position to talk about the real deep stuff that the monks do and the jhanas and all the rest of it. That's not for me to talk about. But a lay meditation on a good day is just, it's just peaceful and it's deep, and you can be meditating once you're nice and relaxed and into it. And for me, right, I'll start a meditation and I'm nice and relaxed, and I'm only hearing the breath, and that's it. And seemingly minutes go by without thinking about anything. It's just the breath in, the breath out, and your mind becomes so concentrated that you're following the breath. Your body starts to sort of buzz a little bit because you're taking in a lot of oxygen, and you're starting to feel quite light physically. And you think to yourself, oh, wow, that was like 2 minutes and I hardly thought of anything and I feel quite rested. And you come out of the meditation and you look around at the clock, oh my God, that was an hour and 20 minutes. That's a good meditation, when it feels like minutes and it's an hour and you're rested and deep, and you come out of it and you don't want to do a whole lot. You just want to have a cup of tea maybe and sit around. Yeah.
Do you spot any light? Do you spot, people talk about eyes and light, or does that?
Yeah, look, those things exist, and if you read the sutras and go see the monks, there's like there's a map, I suppose, of progressive meditation that gets deeper and might be able to take you places. But I'm not really going to talk about that tonight because I'm not any sort of authority on that. Head down to Serpentine, go on a retreat. That's where you'll get that information.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problems. Yes. Oh, here's the speaker.
Sorry, it's not a question, but just you were saying about a bad day, a bad meditation. I find that actually when that happens to me, that I'm actually processing and working through stuff in that, even though I haven't, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
at least I've given time
Yeah.
for all that disruption to come forth in a conscious way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I think, it doesn't.
I think if you went on a retreat at Serpentine, I've only really done a few. It's a disgrace, really, after 20 years. But they would say there's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's just meditations that might be deeper and more fulfilling than others. And I understand what you're saying. Like, you might try and meditate on a particular day and your mind's just racing and racing and racing, and then you sort of give up after 30 minutes or something. You come out and you go, I didn't achieve anything. And did you think a whole lot about work and process it? Maybe. Did you need to really think about it and process it? Is it that important? Maybe. I'm not sure. But I understand what you're saying. And even the fact that you've got the motivation, I wouldn't say the discipline, but the motivation or enthusiasm to sit down on your comfy chair at night or in the morning and have a go regularly in the same place, create the space, create the routine. Fantastic. And just like everyday life, there's wins and losses. Yeah, so keep going. And even when you're doing meditations, and maybe they're bad meditations, you're actually giving yourself, I would think, good karma, because I would imagine you're not having negative thoughts about people, you're not out there doing bad actions, so actually you're in a good karmic state. And especially if you want to start doing meditations, loving kindness and the rest of it, then you're generating like positive
emotions for yourself and your loved ones, and if you do it properly, the greater world. So, yeah, fantastic. If you can do it, great. Alrighty.
Thanks, Drew. That was a really good talk. And thanks everyone for the questions. As I've been coming here for a while, and I find that when the monks are here, people might not ask questions, so it makes me fearful of asking a question.
Ooh, I jump around. I don't want to look foolish.
Yeah. And I think the first time I came here, I was invited to a funeral, and I thought that was really interesting because, as you said, contemplating death, contemplating sickness, those things which are part of most traditions, so nothing really new. And I was raised in a different tradition, so multiple lives and reincarnation was not really part of my start to Buddhism. So I initially, as you mentioned, the Western way, just took the meditation and the reading, but I didn't really foresee that there would come a time where I embrace it and really contemplate it. And I never thought of contemplating deep time. That was the first time I've ever heard of that. So it's very interesting, but excuse my aptitude. I'm not really aware of how to phrase this question. But I have a practical way of contemplating death. So I can actually contemplate death or contemplate sickness. I know how to focus on those things. If you could give maybe a practical way, because it was a little bit more abstract, of how do you really contemplate deep time and the relationship to reincarnation, multiple lives, other than the fact that it's an opportunity that we have now?
You can start out watching Walking with Dinosaurs. Go to the museum. How else to contemplate deep time? You can start with, if you've got any knowledge of your grandparents who might have been in World War II or something like that, and think about what was life like only 2 generations ago. No internet, no phones, no this, no that, no electric cars, no nothing. Oh, that was only 60 years ago. Imagine going back 600 years. Maybe look at your family tree. Oh, people only lived for maybe 30, 40 years before they died in childbirth or were killed in a war or died down the coal mine. Oh, and build it like that. Build it 2 generations back, 6 generations back, 1,000 years back, and keep going. And in the physical world, have a look at geology. You go down to the beach and you say, wow, these sand dunes are only 50,000 years old, and humanity's only been out of the trees for 100,000 years. We've only had civilized tribal mud hut life for 10,000 years. The Egyptians were only 5,000 years ago. Actually, we haven't been here very long at all, and there's a long history before us. Thanks, Rana.
I've always wanted to ask this question. What is Buddhism's point of view of wealth?
What is its point on wealth? So I gave a talk on this about 6 years ago, actually, a public talk. So it's okay. It's okay. The Buddha, he gave a few suttas, and I think one of them, from memory, we're going back now, he said it was the 10 good points of a wealthy man, or man as in 2,500 years ago, but today women as well. And he gave 10 points. If you're going to be wealthy, and sometimes wealth can just be because of karma. You were particularly good for some reason in your last life or life before, and then you've been born into wealth and managed to hang on to it, or through some stroke of luck with a bit of skill, you've managed to accumulate some wealth and have a natural talent for it. And I can't remember all the 10 points, but it's something like, if you're wealthy,
as long as you're generous with the money, so that's generous to your family. And actually in the suttas, it's funny, he says, and generous to your family, your housemaids and your slaves. So that was the norm back then. So if you're generous in your immediate circle, you're generous in the community, you're generous to your local monastery, keeping them in business, and basically using the money for good purposes, and also using it for your own joy. So he said that there was no point in accumulating this wealth if you weren't going to be happy with it yourself, within reason. You know, live in a half-decent house, wear nice clothes, and continue to use the money for good use, and not sort of dam it up and have it for the sake of numbers in your safe or in your bank. Because actually money is not wealth. Money is just purely a symbol of wealth. It's not the wealth is the house you live in, the possessions you have from a materialistic point of view, and then of course, you know, your relationships in the community and with your family. That's the wealth. And so he's saying, use that for good use. And I'm sure one of the points was basically, don't be a miser, don't be Ebenezer Scrooge. So he was, and he even gave a sutta about how to accumulate wealth as well, for those who are listening. And he gave an analogy about a dam and water coming in and not so much coming out and all the rest of it. So it's just a fact of life. Some people are rich, some people are poor through various reasons and circumstances, and it's not to be shied away from. If you've got it, use it generously and wisely. That's it. Because ultimately, at the end, when you die, you have to let it go anyway. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing, because sometimes perhaps I'm having conversations with some people with a different mindset, but it's kind of like I've been given the perception that Buddhism sees wealth as a bad thing, like having access and all this kind of stuff, where I'm thankful that you said that, you know, you can do good things with money in that sense. So thank you for sharing that. So,
yeah, most definitely. I mean, I know people in the Buddhist Society who have been wealthy and helped build this hall, right? Donated to the monastery so we can house monks, and then the monks, you know, spread the Dhamma, I suppose.
What's your personal viewpoint on Nirvana?
And Nirvana?
Yeah.
I haven't got one because I haven't been there.
The ultimate aim. I mean, you must have some concepts of it.
I just want to get out of the burning house. And I assume when I get out, when I find the keys and can unlock the door before it falls in on me, it's going to be better outside the fire.
Yeah, but do you see it as extinction or some ground state, unborn state, beyond time, beyond?
I would hope that it's a release from what I have to keep doing. And I don't know, it's like trying to tell a chimpanzee that it has to go to high school, right? It's not going to get it. But it would be an evolution for it to get there. That's all I know.
That's your ultimate aim, so you should be, you know, if you should have some idea of what you're aiming for.
I think it's like being an 18-year-old, you know, you get out of school and you head out into the world and you're not really quite sure what's going to be out there. You've heard a few stories and you know that it's better than being at school and stuck with your parents, so you just get out there. I think, anyway, yeah.
With regard to, say, meditation, you know, when you say you have these bad days where your mind's racing, that's a form of insight because it's telling you where you're at.
Yeah, I'm not there.
It's your ego that wants these pleasurable states, whereas the real point is insight, not peace.
Insight can be achieved is more easily achieved through a peaceful state, I would imagine. Yeah.
Sometimes pain and suffering
Maybe, yeah. You can have it. I'll take the peaceful way. Any more? Alrighty, I guess we'll call that a night. Bang on 9:01. Thanks everyone, thanks for coming. I'm just going to give 3 bows to the Buddha and then we're done. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu.